All right, guys, so my name is Amir.
And I'm Stanley.
And our company is called Sense Relief. So one day I was tutoring Stanley about career services, and since at the time he was doing game board design, I told him to come back the next week with the design of an actual game board. And he came back with this. So currently the problem is that 1 in 5 American youth and adults have some sort of mental illness. And this is costing Americans $193.2 billion every single year. And according to the National Alliance on Mental Illnesses, 90% of people who commit suicide have some sort of mental disorder. So you guys are asking, aren't there psychologists already, like a large amount of psychologists out there to treat this problem? Well, something psychologists are using is cognitive behavioral therapy. This is a form of therapy that is acknowledged by the NIH to be effective. And this is kind of like a thought process. So the patient is asked for a situation, and then the psychologist walks through the emotions associated with this certain situation just because the patient has a sort of mental disability or barrier. Then the psychologist talks through the emotions associated and the best way to walk through these emotions and work out the problem. So you guys can see CBT is a bunch of long, boring worksheets. So what we've done is change CBT. We made a game board that allows CBT, that allows psychologists and therapists to engage patients of all ages. What we've done is, instead of asking the patient to take initiative, we actually hand the patient an applicable real-life situation. And also, we can track progress through a point system that we created. Also, we look forward to empowering and boosting the confidence of patients, which can translate towards real-life situations. So as you guys have in front of you, our game board has 5 spots, and we have 4 decks total. So you guys have an example of one of the decks for anxiety. The 4 decks are anxiety, depression, anger, and general stress. So it starts off in the morning, and each spot has a different type of situation. So in the morning, there's a barrier of self-esteem. It goes on to a barrier in an academic or professional workplace. And then after that is a barrier concerning friendships, and then after that is family, and right after at night is a barrier concerning self-doubt. So at each of these spots, the psychologist picks one of the cards pertaining to the spot and the type of disorder that the patient has. And then the psychologist talks through and actually enacts the CBT process. And while doing so, the psychologist asks the patient what they would do in this situation and how they would react and what emotions they would have. And then they talk through the best type of solution that they would come up with.
And this game can be played for between 15 and 35 minutes and can be played every week, but does not need to be played every week.
So as we said, we have a point system. So the psychologist, after listening to the situation, after talking about the best solution, rates the answer that the patient gives. So on a scale of 1 to 9, they give points for optimism, 1 to 7 for feasibility, and 1 to 4 for creativity of the solution. So this helps us actually keep track of how the psychologist is doing. And although we know that this can differ from each patient and each psychologist, this is actually to help the psychologist see how each patient does best and what methods work best for them. So we plan to start off with paper forms of tracking, and then move on to some basic Excel sheets for visual representations of the data. And in our long-term plans, we want to have good and strong analytical programs so that the psychologist can actually input the data and have it spit out something very useful for them. So our costs are currently at $20 for each game board, and the game boards we have in front of you are $20. So we began to plan selling at $75. And in our long-term plans, we want to have a lot more data analytics. So the data we're collecting can be really useful for psychologists and patients of all sorts. We also want to incorporate game boards that the patient can take home with the family and play with the family, so they don't need to visit the psychologist as often. Also, another aspect that we plan to have is a game board geared towards people who don't have mental disabilities, to know what it actually feels like to have one of them. So please help us in changing the environment for people with mental disabilities. There's not that much innovation and technology being infused into the field of psychology. So please help us in pushing the boundaries and pushing down all these barriers that exist.